Our guest of the evening is known for making some iconic projects. How many of you guys remember New York Undercover?
How many of you all remember the movie Cool Runnings?
The Jamaican bobsled team, yes.
How many of you all saw
Why Did I Get Married? Why Did I Get Married? Two.
Yes, indeed. So we
Would you say Survivor?
Designated Survivor.
Designated
It's a
Survivor.
lot. In fact, like I said, it's a
7
lot.
Seconds on Netflix right now.
Yes,
Have you seen him in that? How many of you watch Empire? I think they killed him off on Empire, though, right? But he was on Empire. I mean, a lot of other great projects that he's been a part of that we can't mention all here. And he is also a vocalist, which we are going to be getting into a little bit.
A vocalist and musician.
He's vocalist and musician.
On top of being a part of some iconic projects in the television and movie world, he is also an accomplished singer and musician. So we are very happy and very proud to have this multifaceted star here tonight.
Multi-talented.
Mr.
Malik Yoba.
Yeah.
There he is.
Right here.
Your mic is right there, brother.
Woo woo.
I like that guy right there. He's got his hands folded. He's like, man, I don't care about that. I love you, King.
Yeah.
I love you, King.
But the ladies gave you that sex symbol clap, that loud, you know.
I'm going to tell you, man.
Woo! Malik!
I'm going to tell you, there's nothing like the love from the brothers, though.
All right.
Because when black men choose to express love, one of my favorite moments as a person that has been celebrated for the work I've done as an actor has been, and thank you for holding each other accountable so we can have this moment in the proper dynamic, because this is an interview. Yes. One of my favorite moments was I was in Houston, and it was 900 degrees. And like
That's
August,
hot.
And like August, and this dude is driving a hoopty next to me, rusted out. It's probably from the 70s, one of the real long, old school joints, rusted out.
El Camino or something.
Windows down, and funny enough, he reminded me of Questlove. At the time, his overweight brother, big afro, looking like he was having the worst day of his life. And I pulled up to him at the red light, and he turns. Yo, you my man. And to see him transform from a state of what appeared to be a level of despair to hope and appreciation, those are the moments that count. I'm in Miami yesterday, and some dudes hustling weed on the boardwalk, and when the guy realizes it's me, I go to shake his hand and dap him.
I thought you was going to arrest him.
Could have.
JC was there.
But the dude says to me, yo, nah, give me a hug. You know, which has always been my dream. Before Suge Knight got locked up, I used to always say, I've never met Suge, but I always said, I just want to meet Suge and give him a hug. Because what it said to me, just that behavior, that you didn't get enough hugs as a kid. Because if you do, you don't behave that way. Like if people, not the hug with the arm in between, but the heart-to-heart hug, you behave differently when you have that. And so it's cool to come out here, but when I see his whole disposition has changed. He's changed.
You're tugging on his heartstrings now, brother. You're tugging on his heartstrings.
But that's what it's about. So thank you.
You talked about, well, we'll go into that. You talked about how a person's disposition is completely different when they receive, they're raised a certain kind of way, and love. You grew up in New York. I noticed that you have...
Harlem?
Born in the Bronx, raised in Harlem.
I noticed, and I may be wrong, but I noticed that your parents have Islamic names. Were you raised in a Muslim household?
So there was a boy, a very change, enchanted boy.
Come on.
Some say he traveled very far, very far over land and sea, a little shy, but sad of eyes, but very wise was he. And then one day, the magic day, he passed my way. Some say he spoke of many things, fools and kings. This he said to me, the greatest thing you'll ever learn, it's just to love.
Oh, yeah, and be loved in return.
And
be loved in return.
So my last name, Yoba, comes from that song. That song is called Nature Boy. My father was a jazz musician, and he was born in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, actually. And he moved to New York at 15 to chase his dreams as a musician. He was born Milton Myers, and he was born in 1927. And it was hard for a brown person in 1927. He couldn't reconcile a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus and his black skin. And so he took the song, which he used to perform a lot, Nature Boy, and he spelled it backwards, which was Erotan Yob, and then he added the A, and that's where Yoba comes from. So I was at this retreat once in Calabasas. This woman asked me the history of my name, and I tell her that. And he also gave it a meaning, last of the slaves, a new generation. So he was born Christian. Actually, his grandfather started a church in Philadelphia. I don't remember the name of it, but back in the 18 whatevers. And he wanted to relinquish everything European. And so he became Erotan Yoba as a musician hanging around New York. And then in 1959, he became Muslim. And I was born in 1967, so 6 kids. We all have the last name Yoba, and he would raise us to say, if we still lived in Africa, we would be princes and princesses, kings and queens. So we grew up with a complex as kids that we actually were kings and queens. So when we grew, and it occurred to me how deep the indoctrination was. When I was in my 20s, I was dating this girl who told me that her mother used to tell her if she wore horizontal stripes, she would look fat. And in that moment, I realized how deep that indoctrination was for her and how deep the indoctrination was for me in terms of moving through the world with a level of confidence, right? We didn't have to rebel or our names, Yoba. There were no other Yobas. And he's like, that means last of the slaves, a new generation. So I'm in Calabasas at this retreat, and someone's asking me the history of my name. I tell that story. And she goes, the guy who inspired that song lives behind this house. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, Nature Boy, that song. It was written about this guy that lives right down the road behind my house. So she takes me to this house. It was built in the 50s. Guy had built it, he was 74 years old at the time, suffering from Alzheimer's, living in this house. And on the walls were all these pictures of him as a young man. And he had migrated from Germany during World War II and ended up in LA and as a migrant farmer and was eating berries and nuts off the earth. And he was a vegetarian. He was one of the founders of Muscle Beach. And he had all these photographs on his wall, and he tells me his friend, he points to a picture, he goes, my friend wrote that song, Nature Boy, about me. And we took it to, we heard Nat King Cole was performing at the Palladium or the Palace Theater in LA. And they took it to him, but they never got to him. They got to the handler at the door, who takes the music. Months later, they hear the music on the radio, whatever, and Nat King Cole had performed this song about this little German dude. So my father's attempts to relinquish everything European
Really
goes right back
into a German man's hands. Ain't that how it goes? We sang that song, The Nature Boy, at Chuck Brown's funeral. It was one of his favorite songs, and we sang it. And honestly, I wasn't very familiar with it when we sang it, but you know, because it was one of his favorites, and it was very touching. And the lyrics, you know, just as you were singing them, were very, very emotional. and it was a very emotional
It's
moment.
funny because, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was that, New York is a hub of entertainment. And I was going to ask you, did you have an easy time envisioning yourself as being an entertainer and being in the position you are now? But knowing this story, I feel like I already have the answer to that.
Which is
that you had an extreme level of confidence in yourself. And a lot of that came from how you were raised. And most certainly you saw yourself in a lot of roles, I'm sure, and maybe had a lot of dreams. But I'm curious to know what came first for you. Was it the love of music, or was it wanting to be an actor?
Well, my father, as a jazz musician, used to jam or shed wood, as he would say, the old cats, the jazz cats, they'd shed in the living room. So you'd be a bass player, upright bass and sax player, and my father on guitar, drummer. So we grew up around music, no television in the house because he believed it was an idiot box. And there were a lot of books, but I started with his guitar as a kid, and then I saw Alice in Wonderland when I was 4 on stage in a off-Broadway production, and I wanted to be part of the magic, and I just said I want to do that, and my mother encouraged it. My father actually discouraged a career in the arts because of what happened to him. He never got as far as he wanted to go. He had big dreams. He heard Charlie Christensen play guitar when he was 13, and he felt like he wanted to find the God of music, and he chased that dream to New York and went to music school, Mannes College of Music in New York, but never quite got there because he was born at a time when, he literally had to play behind the curtain for Elvis. He would tell us those stories. Or
He played behind the curtain for Elvis.
He would tell us, like, the black musicians couldn't be seen, and so they would be behind the curtain playing because Elvis would say, only thing a black man could do is buy my records and shine my shoes. But
Playing black music behind the curtain.
Yeah. So those are the stories we heard as kids about his journey, and he, Miles and all those cats. He was, he was part of that whole scene, and but it never really happened for him. So he discouraged the pursuit of the arts. But my mother, she encouraged it, and they separated when I was 10, and we ended up staying with him. My 5 siblings and I were with my father, and.
So at what age was it that you had your very first audition as an actor?
Well, my father always said, build your own generator so when they turn off the power, you still have lights. And so for us, we wrote plays as kids and performed them in the living room and charged our neighbors. So I'm like 6 years old, and parents to come see these shows, and we'd make scenery and costumes and charge them. And so we understood the concept of you go see a show, you pay some money, you see a show. So it was more like that as kids. But and then I did a play called Rowdy Kate when I was 10 years old, 5th grade. I played Sheriff Sam, and my drama teacher, Miss Terrell, I don't know if I auditioned for that. I just remember her giving me a song to sing, and we stayed pretty tight all the way to high school. I would invite her to my productions all the way to high school, because she's one of those teachers like you. And I had a few of those that were like, you. And so I gave my teachers my autograph when I was 13. I was like, I'm going to be famous, so you should keep this.
Hold on to this.
The funny thing, that's a common story. A lot of artists, in all genres, they tell this story.
You guys are artists,
I used to practice mine. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. I had several different types. I had 3. I had one that you just could not read whatsoever, and I had a really pretty one that I chose, that I still use to this day, that I made up when I was 10 years old.
You do have good
So I just want you to know, I wanted to be an artist all my life. I wanted to do that. But New York Undercover is really an iconic piece of work at this point. I mean, now, you see black people in lead roles all over television and movies, but at that time, it was a really special project. Going into that project, did you know, look, I got to be a part of this, or did it just kind of catch you off guard?
I mean, my whole career, first of all, I have a show coming up called Harlem to Hollywood that premieres at the Apollo, so you can hear my whole life story through music and me doing all this character work. So you'll see it again in a much more creative fashion.
That's interesting because Malik B was talking about, wanting to do something similar to that, and so now you're doing it. So Malik, pay attention to what Brother Malik Yoba is doing.
You can mark October 18th. We're going to present it right now is still a work in progress, but at the Apollo in October.
Okay.
And then, but it'll present as a full production, and it's set in the therapist's office because I think it's important that we work
Black
through
people
our,
get some therapy.
that we work through our shit. And
Come on.
but for me, my whole career started. I wasn't chasing acting; I was chasing music. So because I could play music anywhere. I could play in the subway. I could do cafes. I didn't have to wait for an audition. And the idea of like waiting for a job was ridiculous to me. And so, for me, from 19, my background, short version is, it's been a life of service. Started tutoring kids at 17, 16. At 19, I was working at the City Kids Foundation in New York. First job was with the Upward Front After School. By 19, I'm volunteering with the City Kids Foundation. By 20, they hire me to work in 13 high schools to help impact the dropout rate. We had a 3-year grant, which was about taking a young group of artists into schools to engage students around what they needed to transform their educational experience, from the content of what they were being taught, to who was teaching them, to the form of it, to the environment they were in. And in 1989, after 3 years, from 87 to 89, I had this job as primarily doing that work in the schools and running a Friday night coalition meeting, which was about bringing kids together from all over New York to discuss issues that were pertinent to them and then create art projects to impact. So it might be a mural, it could be a song, it could be a TV show, it could be a dance, it could be a community-based project. And we had celebrities back the voice of kids. Demi Moore, at the height of Ghost, was our spokesperson, and Bruce, and De Niro, and Quincy Jones, and her. And we always had celebrities back the voice of young people. So I had an incredible job as a young person working with kids, which was my passion. Coming out of high school, I wanted to study early childhood education and musical theater, because I felt like the teachers that were teaching me didn't know how to teach me. And so I would always say, I want to start a school one day.
Sound like my son.
You sound like my son.
Yeah, he knows.
He
knows.
an education major.
And
Listen to the children.
And how that story actually comes full circle. I was doing a teacher training back in the late 80s, and I'm at a high school, and I have all the teachers standing in a circle, and I'm giving some instruction. There's one that keeps talking. I turn, I look, I'm like, oh shit, that's Mr. Arias. That's my 7th grade Spanish teacher. That's the dude who used to tell us we couldn't eat in class. But every day after lunch, he'd have a Kit Kat in his pocket, and he would eat it in front of class and like, but y'all can't eat in class. And he's disrupting this training. He doesn't recognize me because I'm now 20. I was 12 the last time he saw me. I'm like, Mr. Arias. And I tell the story about how when I was 12, I was disruptive, according to him. And he sat me in the corner and put a dunce cap on me, literally. Like,
The freaking dunce cap.
like, if y'all don't know what that
Oh,
was.
the dunce cap and standing in the corner.
A cone-shaped cap that said dunce, like idiot,
Yes.
asshole.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I
Degenerate.
didn't know that those actually existed.
He
I thought
made
that was
one
I
out of
remember
oak
that
tag.
shit.
If you remember what oak tag was, he made one out of this cardboard-like material, wrote dunce on it, sat me in a corner.
Clown of the classroom, basically.
And so he's the clown of this training. And I call him out. I'm like, Mr. Arias, you were my 7th grade teacher. And you were that teacher, and I told the story about the Kit Kats. And I said, that's the problem. And so like your son, I was that person that at 13 or 12, Mr. Arias, you don't know how to teach me. So coming out of high school, that's what I wanted to do, early childhood education and musical theater, because I grew up doing theater and singing and acting. It was always one, right? And so I go to work one day, and there's a sign on the wall. The summer of 1989, we ran out of money, the organization I was working for. But I also had this waiter job. I was making like $500 a week, and cash. And so I told my boss, don't worry, I got it. And that's when you could have an apartment in New York City for $716, a 1-bedroom
Yeah,
in
that
Chelsea.
was way back in the day, brother.
So I'm making $500.
You can't get a good hotel room for $716 up there now.
So I'm good, making $500 a week. And I go to work one day, and I tell her, don't worry, I'm going to volunteer for the summer because I have this waiter job. And I go to work one day, and there's a sign on the wall, and it's an audition for a film. And I go and audition, I get the movie, and then...
what movie was that?
It was a movie called Seriously Fresh, which was about AIDS. It was an educational film produced by a guy who used to be the president of HBO, a guy named John Hoffman, who was losing a lot of friends to AIDS. And so
This was in the 80s.
1989.
89.
89. And he started this film, this company called AIDS Films, to do educational. They were half-hour narratives, you know, dramatic little dramas, but he wanted to play them in schools and clinics. So I do that film, and the guy who wrote that film was named Jamal Joseph, and John Hoffman is the guy who started AIDS Films. Jamal Joseph was on set, and we get to talking. He tells me that he just got out of prison for 10 years with the Black Panther Party. And I said, you know, I run this youth program. I want you to come down during Black History Month and talk to my kids. Because he was 15 when he was in the party. I'm like, I work with these teenagers. I want you to come talk to them. So he comes down and talks to the kids. We love him so much, we end up hiring him to be the artistic director of the City Kids Repertory Company. And Jamal Joseph is the person who told me about the audition for Cool Runnings. And so he called me up one day and said, hey, man, they're doing this movie about the Jamaican bobsled team. Go audition. And I auditioned, and it was an improv. So I show up. And I had auditioned for Fame when I was 15 in high school. I auditioned for, like, Mo Money and Fresh Prince. I auditioned for the Roller Carlton. And there was a
I can't see that. I can't see that.
There was a...
Did they have you doing the dance for Carlton back then?
I think he made that up. I think
He made that up.
He made that up. I think he
Yes.
made that up. Just like for Cool Runnings. Like, so I go audition for Cool Runnings, and I wrote the song, the theme song. Enough people say, no, they can't believe Jamaica. We have a bobsled team. We have the Wanderers. And I wrote that. And so I wrote that for my audition. So I go to this improv.
Cha-ching.
You know it. So I know, like, every Jamaican has a song in their heart. And so when I went and did the improv, they said, pretend that, you know, the character wasn't even a member of the bobsled team. And he says, you know, you hang out with these guys. I did this whole improv about how I taught Bob Marley how to write music. And then then 2 months later, I'm at Greenpeace at a meeting about saving the whales, literally. And I get a call, and it's Disney. And they tracked me down because they called my job at City Kids and said, I was at this meeting at Greenpeace. And they called me and said, can you fly to LA tomorrow to screen tests? And who is this? They said, well, you auditioned for this movie 2 months ago, and the director would like to meet you. And I said, I have a job. I don't know if I can go. I go to my boss. I said, look, Disney wants to fly me out tomorrow to screen test for this movie. I fly out, and she says, you got to go. And I fly out. I get the movie, and I screen test for it. And while I'm doing the screen test, they said, so you guys just won a race. Celebrate. And I pull out. Enough people say, no, they can't believe Jamaica. We have a bobsled team. We have the one Reese and the one Junior. Yul Brenner and the man Sanka. The fastest are the Ula Jamaican sprinter. Go to Olympic 5 Jamaica. And so she loved the song. She ended up using it in the movie. Whirler Girl redid it. So I got lots of cha-chings from those 16 bars. But the way that, so I get the movie, and then the movie got dropped. And I get a call on Christmas Eve, 1991, saying that the movie, Disney, Buena Vista Pictures decided not to do the movie. And she goes, and this is Dawn Steele, the producer of the film, who was the first woman to ever run a studio. And she was also responsible for the first product placement. When you went to McDonald's and got little toys, she's the person who started that. Wow. That was Dawn Steele. And she ran Columbia Pictures before she had this deal at Disney. And she tells me, I'm going to get this movie made. 8 months later, I got another call. There's a new director. He'd like to meet you. I'm like, nah, I'm busy. I'm working on my album. Y'all ain't going to fly me to L.A. again. And, like, I'm not going through that. They called a few more times. I went to L.A. I screen tested, got the movie. That was 92, and then we shot in 93. The movie came out in the fall of 93. And between the fall of 93 and the spring of 94, I booked 2 Miramax films, an AT&T commercial. I did like a guest spot on Law and Order and something else. And the same casting director that cast New York Undercover, or cast Cool Runnings the first time, was casting New York Undercover. So she said, as soon as she read the script, she thought of me for that role. And her name was Jackie Brown, who was actually the name Jackie, the movie Quentin Tarantino, it was inspired. That's a nod to her, that movie. She actually, believe she cast that film as well. And so Jackie was a fan and auditioned for New York Undercover. And then even though after Cool Runnings, I went back to my job at City Kids. And we had a Saturday morning TV show at the time. And it was with the Muppets. Donald Faison was in that show. Lisa Nicole Carson was in that show.
Lisa Nicole Carson.
Dule Hill was in that
Every
show.
Every black man loves some Lisa Nicole Carson.
She was on Ally McBeal.
This one right
yes,
here. Look at his face.
I'm just a man. I'm just a man.
So I was co-musical director of that show. So I finished Cool Runnings. I go back to my job at City Kids, and we did all kinds of cool shit. And having a Saturday morning TV show with the Muppets was one of them. And part of my job was to write music for every episode. We had like these little music video moments. And then within 5 months of Cool Runnings coming out, I booked all those jobs, and then I said, I guess I'm acting. So it wasn't like I was trying to do it.
Actor.
Yeah.
But it's like a series of events, of fortunate events that happens. And so for us watching it, I have to say, I don't really believe that I, as a person watching New York Undercover, ever saw a single black father on TV like that. I don't remember ever seeing it.
It was the first one in the history of television.
I thought that was a huge statement to make. Your relationship with your son is a standout moment in the show for me. Did you draw from your relationship with your own father when you were...
My father and my brother. So, like, they would write scenes where JC's, would write, it would say, JC is, or G's doing homework while watching TV. I'm like, absolutely not.
What's the actor's name that was G?
George Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a great actor, actually, by the way.
And I would say, absolutely not. Props, go get a bunch of books and put them around him, no TV, and shoot the scene that way. Or it would say, JC prepares a TV dinner. And I'm like, absolutely not. Go get real food. We're going to cut it up in the scene. We're going to cook. Or moments where, like, I dropped the G character off at school, and he'd get out the car, and before he get out the car, I'm like, nah, give me a kiss. Like, that wasn't scripted. Mm-hmm. And my father didn't do that, but that's what I always wanted my father to do. But I also understood that I was representing a young father, and it was important to show affection between a father and a son, because I knew folks were watching.
Vision.
There's a really interesting moment with Esther Rolle where she talks about how she refused to do Good Times unless they kept a father, unless she had a father for her children. In terms of for us, it's a lot of positive imagery from New York Undercover in terms of the individual characters. Did you ever get any pushback from the networks about some of the decisions you all made concerning those characters and the kinds of moments that they did have? Were you ever given any directives that
not
bothered you?
No, I remember we shot the pilot. They were like, y'all say man too much. Like, yo, man, but for real, man, I'm saying, man. Like, they're like, can you not say man so much? Not really. There wasn't a lot of, we knew we were doing something important. In fact, Jamal Joseph ended up writing an episode on the show.
There's one moment for me in particular that really stands out was JC's relationship with the woman in his life.
Which one?
The one that died.
The baby mama?
The one that died.
Oh,
and the baby mama.
The Michael Michelle character.
Yeah, and the baby's mother. Some of us black women, we watch a lot of Hollywood and, we see a lot of images of us that we don't like so much. And though I felt that it was very forward and wonderful the way that you were able to co-parent with one character and then that you were able to be so vulnerable and in love with another character, did you ever feel that the baby's mother character was fed into some stereotypes about black women?
I think she fed into more archetypes. It's more of an archetype, right? So there's that woman that perhaps never got the love that she wanted or needed, more importantly, particularly from her father. And so she has a man and a son with this man, and for whatever reason, they may not have the level of connection that is needed to sustain a healthy relationship. And oftentimes, and this is again why my show is set in the therapist's office, because what I've learned, and one of the things that you get to do, as you know, as artists, is theater is the laboratory of life. We get to work out a whole bunch of shit. Yeah. And oftentimes that stuff shows up for us, right, in our work. Yeah. I can't tell you how many movies or plays I've done where what I'm going through in the film, I'm going through in my life, and I have to be very careful in terms of choosing that, because you have to drop yourself into the truth of that and deal with it and allow all the stuff to come up, right? And so, for instance, Why'd I Get Married, those moments with Janet's character, you know, Gavin is with Patty, who is a therapist, but she's withholding. And this is a vulnerable man that wants to communicate with his woman that doesn't have the ability to do that. And it breaks him. And for Tyler, he wrote it in a way that I thought was, you know, pedestrian initially. He's drunk. I'm like, it's not about being drunk. Why does he get drunk? Did he intend to get drunk? Or he's just drinking and realizes he's drunk? And then there's a whole other dimension. It's not just a person who gets drunk for the sake of getting drunk, but I'm trying to love you and be vulnerable with you and communicate with you, and you don't have the ability to do that.
I've heard
and
that
so my brother, who was a teenage father, had that dynamic with his baby mama. I wasn't a dad at the time, so I would draw on my brother's experiences in that relationship. But then I became a father with a woman and had that dynamic in real life and continue to 22 years later. And it's important for me to shed light on what that is, because we're carrying so much trauma and don't realize. We just keep it moving. We just keep it moving. Like, I'll never forget the taste she said to me in 2006, for the last 11 years, I've projected all my issues with my father onto you. And I said, but I've known that, boo. And no, but not in a condescending way, but in a compassionate way. Because it's like chess. I see the moves you're making before you move. Like, you're not going to win this game, because in order to understand who you are as a human and beyond what's your name, what's your occupation or your vocation, where do you come from? No, who are you? The essence of who you are.
I've actually heard before that Tyler Perry gives his actors a lot of freedom in terms of interpreting what
Dialogue
the
and what
storyline is.
have you.
Yeah,
And
he
it
likes to
allows them
improv, so he's definitely,
Yeah.
and that, he's great that way. He's great at opening up, and that was good. Like, he was very open to, you know, in fact, in the second movie, a lot of Janet's dialogue was originally Gavin's dialogue, and I was like, it wouldn't work like that. These two people in this situation, it wouldn't, he'd be saying the things she's saying. He was like, well, that's what
And
you
you
think.
and Janet had a really great chemistry.
Because Janet loved me, that's why. Those are my twins. Y'all don't know. Y'all laughing now.
Let me say that you've been very fortunate in the sense to have a lot of quality roles thus far in your career, and it is not always the case for a lot of black actors. Have you had to turn down a lot of things because you didn't feel it was quality?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's more about, I mean, and quality could be defined in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, quality, integrity, in terms of your integrity,
And
your
sometimes
artistic
you get, like you
and
mentioned,
social integrity.
you mentioned getting killed off of Empire, right? So for me, Empire was on Fox. That was my 4th show with the Fox studio. I did Defying Gravity, which was a series about astronauts in 2009 that lasted like a half a season. That was a Fox Studio show, and I did Thief for FX, which was Fox Studio as well, and New York Undercover. And so when Empire came around, it was like a reunion for me, right? Terrence was a guest star on New York Undercover, Naomi Campbell, Lee Daniels' sister, they're from here. She helped cast me in Cool Runnings. A lot of the executives at Fox were the same people. We all had grown up, and so for me, I felt like, wow, we got a formerly incarcerated woman, we have a bipolar son, we have a gay son, we've got this music, and we got these black men taking a company public. You got 5 touchstones that you could really build storylines and strategy around, not just on screen, but in the community in really meaningful ways. Because at the time, I've been a series lead in 13 series. Most people don't realize that. Most don't work, and most aren't always what black folks are watching, right? Most fail. A lot of times I'm the only black person in Defying Gravity, Designated. I can go down the list on I'm the only black dude. So knowing the impact New York Undercover had, that informed a lot of my understanding in terms of what audiences respond to, what they want and need, and because you're on the ground and people tell you. And so there's this disconnect between decision makers and the talent to say this is what the people are really saying. Now we have social media, so it's a little different. So working on a show like Empire for me, I was being proactive by looking at the storylines, looking at the touch points. I had a marketing company at the time. I said, we can build strategy around those issues and do something about it. I do a lot of work around prison reform, mass incarceration, as a for instance. Not enough is said about women that are coming home and what that return is like, right? And then I realized that that's not the objective of the powers that be. And so on a vibrational level, I'm walking around set, people saying one thing, but I'm feeling, I hear you, but And then the character gets killed 2 weeks after I was told my character was going to save the day in the season finale. And then the character gets killed, and there's no forewarning. And they don't just kill a character, but that's a whole lot of money also that you don't make. And so there's economic ramifications from a tax perspective, just keeping it really, really real.
That's interesting.
Right? So, and this woman wrote to me on Twitter once and said, I'm glad you're no longer on that show because they did not vibrate on your level. And I was like, that's that one person that gets it. Because I can tell you things like literally, we're about to shoot a scene. I'm fiddling around on the guitar in the office. And we're rehearsing the scene. I'm doing my dialogue, just playing guitar. And we shoot the scene. I'm still playing guitar. And one of the producers comes up, can you lose the guitar? It's distracting. I said, this is a show in a music company. I mean, there's a piano in the scene. How? Because in my mind, I was, what's his name? No. Babyface partner.
Oh, L.A. Reid?
L.A. Reid. The character, my whole mindset, because if you look at the first season, a lot wasn't written for Vernon. So as an actor, you have to ground yourself in a truth. And in my mind, Vernon was a dude that went to Wharton, saw Cookie and Lucius performing at a little club. He thought they had talent. Look, kid, you focus on the music. I'm going to focus on this business. I'm getting this degree. I'm going to Wall Street. I'm going to make this money. I'm going to come back. And that's why even in scenes where Vernon didn't have anything to say, I'm looking at you. I'm running this shit. I don't have to say anything, but I believe it in that moment. And so when you are working in an environment where you recognize that you have gifts. New York Undercover was like that for me. Everything the Essence Music Festival is now is what I proposed to Universal when we did New York Undercover. I said, we have all these incredible guests that perform on the show. Why not do concerts with those acts in the communities that they're from? They anchor a concert. And then, like Boyz II Men at the time, they did the show. Boyz II Men could anchor a concert in Philly. All the youth programs in the city that deal with violence prevention, they would run workshops during the day, and then we'd do the concert at night, and then we would do this, it was called the Protect and Serve Tour. And I sat with 2 Harvard MBAs and put together, it was called Cause Marketing at the time. I use the American Express charge against hunger as an example of card usage went up 10% when people knew that every time they swiped this card, they're feeding homeless people. And this was in the 90s. There was no social media. There wasn't even a conversation about homelessness like that. But American Express, the charge against hunger as a platform, made a difference. And I used that as an example and said, we can use this show, we can use MTV, because MTV was still playing music at the time, to track the concert. And we're going to go from warm weather in the winter to cold weather, or, you know, by the time we get to the East Coast, it's going to be warm. And we're going to start in LA, and I sit with Dick Wolf, and I say, look, man, and there was all this merchandise. You never saw a New York Undercover t-shirt. You never saw a hat. You never saw a poster. You never saw anything. None of that stuff existed, but existed for all these other shows. For X-Files, for Party of Five, for Melrose Place. And I'm like, yo, here you go. $10 million profit year one for you. I didn't even write myself into the budget because I just thought it was the right thing to do.
I saw an interview some time ago with Tupac, who talked about something very similar as well. Talking about taking concerts into the communities and just having young people there and exclusively being for them. I want to backtrack a little bit where he talked about the kinds of roles that you've been able to do and the things that you take on in terms of characters. Recently, you did a play where you portrayed a person who was transgender. And
Hold on.
Wait.
Hold on.
Wait, before you go
Hold on, no, because you getting real uncomfortable now.
No, wait.
Hold on.
I just want to, can I finish
No.
the question or whatever?
First of all, the character's name was Oprah Obama Oh Mama. And it was Oprah Obama Oh Mama.
Oprah Obama Oh Mama.
And the character was actually supposed to be, there's a woman named Melanie Gaudreau who I met for the first time in LA in probably 2003. I met a young man at the gas station who was like, yo, you're an actor, I'm an actor, I'm doing this play around the corner, come check me out. I was like, all right. I go to this theater festival, I meet Melanie, I loved her work. We stayed in contact over the years, hadn't seen anything from her. She reached out to me late last year and said, hey, I'm doing this play and I want you to play the character of God. And it is a cross between a man and a woman, and the character's name is Oprah Obama Oh Mama, and it's a sci-fi, futuristic, Afro sci-fi futuristic. So she's a really quirky writer, and so she had this crazy idea. I said, well, I can't do the play because I'm not available to do the run, but we can videotape my character, which is supposed to come at the end. It's the last 3 black women on earth, and there's one black man, and they're fighting for him, and they're doing all the wrong things, and God shows up. And so the way I actually did the character in the play was very different from what I posted online. And the saddest thing about that was, so I wasn't transgendered. I had makeup on, but it was not a transgendered character. It was supposed to be that. It was supposed to be this
hybrid.
This hybrid. And the saddest thing about that, because it ended up on World Star Hip Hop, I got tons of hate messages from homophobic black men especially, and women. And what was really disturbing about it is that the real narrative is, I'm here promoting my friend's play. She's a writer. She asked me to help her out. I'm helping her out. And people got so caught up in their discomfort about why y'all so damn uncomfortable, though. No, because people, they be feeling all kinds of shit. I'm a motherfucking genius at what I do. And I've been gifted to tell other people's stories. That's why Harlem to Hollywood is set in a therapist's office. Because when these black men write to me, fuck you, nigga, you my man, fuck all that bullshit, you put on dresses and fuck you gay for pay. The amount of gay for pay messages that I got when I'm out there promoting a woman's play. I said, wait till I put the dress on. Because if you're uncomfortable with that, no, because for me, it's about giving voice to the voiceless. Like, why does Shaka Senghor need to spend decades in solitary confinement for him to find his genius? No, a world without prisons means we focus on education. And if I was a person that felt like that is my truth, And I had to put on that makeup every day to go into the world and be who I am. And y'all motherfuckers want to beat me down because this shit make you uncomfortable because your dick is hard, you faggot. But that's what it is. That's what it is. And so for me, that's why I had to stop you, because I was really hurt because I was so disappointed. Is that people, I got more views on that post than any post I've ever posted, and not 90%, maybe 40%
People love
of
the
them,
controversial stuff.
but the hate from black people.
Yeah, I read some of the comments. So
From black people.
From black people. I did want to say this to you or ask you this.
We running short on time.
Yeah, this was actually my actual question was your approach. How did you approach that character without feeling like you were a caricature?
Well, first of all, the way I actually played the character was not like that. I played as this amalgamation of fabulousness. And I played it in a way that they weren't really sure what to do. That is how I played her, him, them, us. So when I did the post, I was trying to bridge the discomfort. So I started it like, yo, this is my girl, Melanie, I'm doing a play, and I'm not saying, but I'm saying so. And I'm going back and forth because I know people are going to be uncomfortable. And it actually backfired, to be honest with you. Like, I was surprised that there would be so many people that were upset. I was just up for a role to play opposite Catherine Zeta-Jones as her gay best friend. And I truly believe there's certain things that I do like all day long. You know what I'm doing? I'm going to talk to you, you know? I'm going to tell you fucking look at me like I had a fucking problem, you know? You going to ask me something? You going to talk to me? Me a little Medusas. A little fucking Medusa over here, you know? I went to see the Gotti movie last week, right? I'm sitting in the audience. The guy says, hey, you want a little bit of wine? He looks at me. He says, red or white? I'm like, the fucking guy's got wine in the fucking movie theater, you know? And so he looks at me, he asks me a question. He says to me, he goes, hey, listen, do you know who Gotti was? I'm you fucking asshole. But the craziest shit about it.
We've had more F-bombs on this show than we've ever had.
But yeah, I mean, like I said,
You're a chameleon, man. You're a
right,
great actor, and this is very clear.
Every voice, it really is amazing. But like I said, I just was, curious how you approached it. But
I approached it. Actually, I didn't. I'm gonna tell you exactly how I approached it. I didn't have time to learn the lines, so I had her write them out on big ass cards, and then we filmed it. And they cut it from different angles, and you could never tell that I was actually reading it. But I approached it with love. I approached it with support. I said, this is a woman who has a vision, and it's something I've never done before. And that's like the Catherine Zeta-Jones thing, and they decided to go in another direction. But for me, I want to do that because I've always said, I want to play an old Russian woman. I want to play the furthest thing away from me because it's not about what you...
Because it's a stretch.
Yeah, but not only that, but they're already here. That's why I wrote Harlem to Hollywood, because no one's going to pay me to play Gladys Rosenberg. Can I talk to you? What are you going to do? You're going to sit there like a lump on a kosher pickle, or are you going to talk to me? My name is Gladys Rosenberg, geriatric pole dance instructor, therapist to the stores. That's what I do. You laughing?
This is going to be incredible.
This is going to be an epic show.
I'm going to ask you the question that I asked the other guys about songs in the key of Black life. Give me 3 songs from 3 artists that you feel are imperative to your life or to Black life in general.
Sam Cooke, Change Gonna Come. I was more. No. Bob Marley, One Love. And Kendrick Lamar, Fear.
I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Malik Yoba.
bring it all the way down, all the way down. Now let me ask y'all a question. How many of y'all came out to watch His Woman, His Wife at the Merriam Theater back in, y'all was out there watching His Woman, so y'all remember this song. Now I wrote this song when I was about 20 years old, real talk. I learned these 3 chords on my guitar, and I went home and wrote this song. So it's not about any individual person. Check it out. Baby, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. Woman, you showed me a better love I will never find. No simple reason we cannot be what you want us to be. Don't stop believing, have faith in me. Baby, have faith in me. There's one thing I know in this crazy world. You and I should be together for life. This I know, my girl. I've tried my best to understand, but I guess it's part of His plan.
Ooh. Ooh, yeah, yeah.
I'm only human, mistakes I make along the way. So much confusion, that's why I pray for God to show me what I really need to see. Don't stop believing. Have faith in me, baby, have faith in me, 'cause there's one thing I know in this crazy world. You and I should be together for life. This I know, my girl. I've tried my best.
You and I should be together for life.
Understand
this
I guess.
Be together, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Take it there. I'll do anything for you. Give you my life, my heart, my all to you. I'll do it for you. Give me just one good reason. Me to stop believing love won't work. I see through your hurt. I'll do anything for you. Give you my life, my heart, my all to you. I'll do it for you. Freestyle, baby. Give it to me, baby.
Ooh.
Give it to me right now. Give it to me right now.
Give it to me right now.
Give it to me right now.
Give it to me right now.
Give it to me right now.
Give it to me right now. Ooh, yeah.
What you gonna say? I I don't even know who she is. She just showed up on my stage. But this is what I love about Black Music Month. Bring it all the way down. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Trina.
Hey, Trina, how you doing, baby?
Hey.
What brings you here tonight, Trina?
Well, Malik, I heard you was in town.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, you know, I gotta live for every woman that's in the building.
Okay.
So I know every woman would want to get up here on the stage with you.
Talk about it.
You understand? So I said, let me get this mic and let me sing with Yoba. Let me sing with Yoba for a minute.
My heart, my all to you.
Oh, yeah.
I'll do anything for you. Give me my life, my heart to you.
Give my all to you.
I'll do anything for you.
You better
Give me my life, my heart, my love.
Give your all to me, baby.
I'll do anything for you. Give me my life, my heart, my all to you. And do anything. Now, come on, y'all. Y'all don't want to dance just a little bit? You want to dance just a little bit? You want to move just a little bit? Come on, we got cameras on. Get up in front of these cameras. Come on, y'all. It's just a few of us. It ain't like no big stadium show. Come on, baby. Here. Hold it, bring it all the way down. You don't want to dance with me. Yes, you do now. Yes, you do now. Come on, baby, now and dance with me. Yes, you do now. Yes, you do now. What's your name?
Tania.
Hold on, Tania. Tell me a little something, Tania. What brought you here tonight?
You?
All right. That's what I'm talking about. How many other came to see Malik? Because there's 3 Maliks tonight. Y'all came for the 3 kings. You all right, darling? Let me help you down. I'll do anything.
I'll do
Give you my life, my love. I'll do anything.
I'll do anything.
Give you my life, my love.
Give you my life, my love.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Bring it all the way down. Kindred Presents, I want to thank you for inviting me out tonight. You know, music has been a part of my life, but she's been like a mistress that I'm neglecting. So I set an intention earlier this year. Frank, you didn't know this. Y'all didn't know this. But I said I need to do more music this year. And like a week or so later, I got an email to come and do this. So thank you. Thank you so much, Philly. Thank you so much for coming out.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate y'all coming. We appreciate y'all staying.